12 hours ago, a ballistic missile fired from Yemen hit Israeli airspace. The Houthis, a rebel army most people couldn't find on a map, just entered the Iran war. And if you think this is just another escalation in a distant conflict, here's the number you need to understand. 12% of all global trade passes through a strait the Houthis already control. This is no longer a war between two countries. It's a war that now threatens every container ship, every oil tanker, and every supply chain on Earth. Let's talk about why this changes everything, and what it means for the price of everything you buy. On March 28, 2026, Yemen's Houthi rebels launched their first military operation against Israel since the US-Iran war began. Brigadier General Yahya Saree announced the strike on Al-Masra television, ballistic missiles targeting what the Houthis called sensitive Israeli military sites in southern Israel. The Israeli Iron Dome intercepted the missiles. No casualties, no damage. But the missiles weren't the point. The point was the message. The Houthis are in this war now, and they're positioned at the most dangerous choke point in global shipping. Here's what you need to understand about the Houthis, and why every government on Earth just got very nervous. The Houthis control most of western Yemen, including a 500-kilometer coastline along the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Sitting at the southern tip of this coastline is the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a 20-mile-wide passage between Yemen and Djibouti. Every single ship traveling between Asia and Europe through the Suez Canal must pass through it. And here's the number that keeps shipping executives awake at night. Approximately 17,000 ships pass through Bab el-Mandeb every year. That's roughly 12% of all global trade by volume. Oil, natural gas, consumer goods, food, electronics, all of it funnels through a 20-mile gap controlled by an armed rebel group that just declared war on Israel. But that's not even the scary part. The Houthis have done this before. In 2023 and 2024, they attacked commercial shipping in the Red Sea in response to the Gaza war. Over a 12-month period, they launched more than 100 attacks on vessels, using drones, anti-ship missiles, and naval mines. Several major shipping companies, including Maersk, MSC, and Hapag-Lloyd, rerouted their entire fleet around the Cape of Good Hope. That added 10 to 14 days to delivery times and increased shipping costs by 300%. That was when the Houthis were operating with limited Iranian support and no direct war justification. Now they have both. Iran has been supplying the Houthis with increasingly sophisticated weapons for over a decade. Ballistic missiles with ranges exceeding 2,000 kilometers, anti-ship cruise missiles based on Iranian designs, explosive-laden drone boats capable of targeting vessels in port. And according to U.S. Central Command intelligence assessments, the Houthis currently possess more than 400 missile and drone systems capable of reaching targets across the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, and as far as central Israel. 400 weapon systems, aimed at the busiest shipping lane on the planet. Now let's connect this to the bigger picture, because the timing of the Houthi entry into the war is not a coincidence. The Iran war is 29 days old. The United States and Israel have destroyed roughly 1/3 of Iran's missile stockpile. Iran's supreme leader is dead. Tehran is under nightly bombardment, and Iran's conventional military capacity is degrading by the day. So Iran is activating its proxies, and the Houthis are the most strategically valuable proxy Iran has. Not Hezbollah, which has been hammered in Lebanon. Not the Iraqi militias, which lack the geographic advantage. The Houthis, because they sit on the world's most vulnerable trade route. This is Iran's leverage. If the US takes Karg Island and cuts off Iran's oil revenue, which we analyzed in our previous video, Iran's response isn't just hitting Saudi oil fields. It's unleashing the Houthis on global shipping. And that's a threat the US Navy cannot easily neutralize. Here's why. The Red Sea is 1,200 miles long. The US Navy currently has 2 carrier strike groups in the region, the USS Eisenhower and the USS Harry Truman. In 2024, these groups spent months trying to suppress Houthi attacks. They shot down hundreds of drones and missiles. They struck Houthi launch sites repeatedly, and the attacks kept coming. The problem is asymmetric warfare at its purest. A Houthi drone costs approximately $20,000. The SM-2 missile the Navy uses to intercept it costs $2.1 million. The math doesn't work. For every $1 million the Houthis spend on attacks, The US spends over $100 million on defense, and the Houthis have an essentially unlimited supply of cheap weapons flowing in from Iran. The economic impact is already measurable. Since the Houthis announced their entry into the war, insurance premiums for Red Sea transits have increased by an additional 200% on top of already elevated rates. Lloyd's of London has designated the southern Red Sea a high-risk zone, the same classification it gives to active war zones. 3 major European shipping companies suspended Red Sea operations within hours of the Houthi announcement. And this is just day one. Goldman Sachs released a note to clients on Saturday evening, estimating that a full Houthi blockade of the Red Sea would add $15 to $20 per barrel to global oil prices and increase the cost of shipping a container from Shanghai to Rotterdam by 400%. For context, a 400% increase in container shipping costs translates to higher prices on everything from electronics to clothing to food in every European and North American supermarket. Now let's zoom out, because there are now 6 active theaters in this expanding war. Theater 1, Iran itself, US and Israeli airstrikes continue daily. Theater 2, Lebanon, Israeli strikes have killed over 1,189 people since March 2nd. Theater 3, Iraq and Syria, Iranian proxy militias have attacked US bases, wounding over 300 American service members. Theater 4, the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz remains under partial Iranian blockade. Theater 5, Yemen and the Red Sea, the Houthis are now attacking Israeli and Western targets. And Theater 6, the diplomatic arena, where Trump has just threatened to abandon NATO entirely because allies refuse to help with the Iran war. 6 theaters, 4 continents, and no signs of de-escalation. Meanwhile, something remarkable is happening on American soil. On the same day the Houthis entered the war, more than 3 million Americans took to the streets in what organizers are calling the largest protest in US history. Over 3,300 events across all 50 states. The protesters marched against the Iran war, against immigration enforcement, against what they called executive overreach. Small towns in Idaho, Wyoming, and rural Texas, places that voted overwhelmingly for the current administration, held their first political protests in decades. A country at war abroad and divided at home. This is historically one of the most dangerous combinations in geopolitics. So what happens next? 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, limited Houthi engagement. The Houthis fire symbolic strikes at Israel but avoid attacking commercial shipping directly. The US and Israel tolerate this as a manageable nuisance. The Red Sea remains tense but open. Probability 30% and falling with each missile launch. Scenario 2, full Red Sea disruption. The Houthis resume attacking commercial vessels as they did in 2024, but with more advanced weapons and explicit Iranian coordination. Major shipping companies reroute around Africa. Container costs spike 400%. Oil hits $140. European inflation surges. This is the base case most analysts are modeling. Probability 50%. Scenario 3, direct US military confrontation with Yemen. The Pentagon launches a sustained air campaign against Houthi positions, opening a second simultaneous war in the Middle East while still fighting Iran. Troop deployments increase. American casualties rise. Domestic opposition intensifies. Probability 20%, but rising every day the Houthis keep shooting. The next 72 hours will determine which scenario unfolds. The USS Eisenhower is repositioning toward the southern Red Sea. The Houthis have promised more strikes, and 12% of everything the world buys is about to get a lot more expensive. One strait, 20 miles wide, and the power to reshape the global economy. What do you think? Will the Red Sea stay open? Drop your prediction in the comments. And if you want to understand power as it actually works, subscribe to Realpolitik. New analysis every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.